Weird. So when I first learned about sexual predators in the church, I was like really confused. It was someone I know, their aunt had married a guy who was accused of pedophilia, and I was like, what? This is weird. Like, so you can like, so I'm just thinking of the cases where the guy admits. I don't know if this was a case where he admitted to do anything, but I think it was. And I was like, wait, so you can admit to hurting somebody and so like you can get excommunicated or disciplined, whatever that means, church discipline. What does that even mean? Oh, you can't go to church. Oh, even excommunication. Like, how is that any kind of punishment for anybody that abuses children? And I was just thinking how if this is my church, you know, I believe I'm a member of this church. I don't feel like this is my church if there are abusers who get to have the priesthood. And so then I was like, maybe I shouldn't be in this church. Like, maybe I'm being prideful. You know, of course, there's like the wondering about myself kind of thing, you know, am I forgiving? Blah, blah, blah. Well, now that I know that the church is fake and that, you know, through reading church history, you lose your testimony because you realize that your testimony is built on falsehoods. Anyway, so I thought that was interesting. In the sense of the church, see, you always hear this phrase, whenever there's bad news, whenever people are doing bad things, you say, well, the people aren't perfect, but the church is, or it's the people, not the church, you know. And I think, well, if the church has doctrines and has principles and things they do that allow bad things to happen, then the church is wrong and the people are wrong. The church is bad, the doctrines are bad, and the people are bad. Here's the thing that only makes sense to me. Here's the only thing that makes sense to me. So those who abuse their wives and those who abuse children sexually, okay, maybe we'll separate those. So people who abuse sexually, at the top, you would start with those who confess to it. So maybe a wife or a child accuses, and then the guy admits it. Well, in my mind, obviously, you would excommunicate them, and you wouldn't allow them back on church grounds for the rest of their lives. And you would definitely not restore their priesthood. I mean, it's just laughable. It's just, I didn't know this stuff in the Mormon church. I didn't know that the Mormon church allowed sexual abusers to have the priesthood, to have callings, to continue to go to church. So it's like, I didn't know the church was so filthy. I didn't know the church was so disgusting. I thought it was good. Because if you would have asked me when I was a teenager, like, if a guy sexually abuses someone, rapes someone, or molests a kid, what do you think's happening? Oh, I would have been like, oh man, they'll get excommunicated. Oh man, they'll never come back. They won't be allowed back to church. And then you find out, like, oh, well, that's not the case, or whatever. It's like, holy crap, man. It's like, it's creepy, if you think about it. I think a lot of us growing up didn't know that so much bad stuff happened in the church. We didn't know about guys. We didn't know about the women being abused. And so that's, the Jesus, I love the idea of Jesus. I love the idea of resurrection. Just resurrection. I mean, having a perfect body. But so that's why I like the church. But here's the deal. If Jesus was real, he wouldn't be letting this church exist the way it is. So it's like, it's kind of weird. It's like learning the history of the church, learning the abuses that go on, make me think, well, obviously there is no Jesus. It would be like if you knew a family and you were going to go live with this family and you thought they were great, and you found out they were a crazy family and abusive, but they had opportunities for you. Like they were going to give you a house, they were going to give you a job or whatever. It's like, you see what I'm saying? It's like, well, they're going to give me a job. I can get a house. So there's always the good things in the church that pull people into the church. So I can see why people don't look at church history. I can see why people stay in the church, even though there are abuses. So I can understand why people stay in the church. But people in the church should understand why people leave the church.